Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our presentation of our master program in History of Architecture and Town Planning. My name is Maja Babic. I'm one of the professors in the Department of History of Art, Architecture, and Landscape, and part of the architecture section in charge of this master program. So today we will go rather briefly over who we are, what we do, and what really comes next. On the screen, you can see the links to two websites. One is the official one for our MA, and the second one is for the Expertise Center, within which we conduct our research. Our presentation today will be rather brief. We do not want to take too much of your time. However, I absolutely urge you to take note of any questions you might have for us later, or even better, put them in the chat box so we can answer them at the end. We would like to note that our program is a part of a larger network. We collaborate with a variety of institutions. We are a part of the University of Groningen, obviously. However, we are part also of the Expertise Center in Architecture, Urbanism, and Health. At the bottom of the screen, you can see a large variety of other institutions we collaborate with, both in the Netherlands, in Europe, but also globally. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my colleagues to present themselves. And on the screen, you can see the composition of our section. And these would be the people that you would be mainly working with if you were to start this MA with us. So I will invite Cor Wagenaar, our professor, to introduce himself, and then we can go down the list through the rest of us who are present here today. So, Cor.
Thank you, Maya. Well, I'm Cor Wagenaar. I'm the chair of this section, Architecture, History and Theory of Architecture and Urbanism. I also work in Berlin and also in Delft. I keep it very short. Marijke is not with us today. She's an associate professor, also working at this institute. And then I give the floor to Tino.
Yes, hi, I'm Tino Mager. I'm in Groningen since 3 years as an assistant professor for the history and theory of architecture and urbanism. Then I hand over to Maya, which you have already met. Maybe you want to introduce yourself again? Or
I will just briefly introduce myself. I'm not really sure if you can see my face on the screen, but I do exist behind the PowerPoint. My name is Maja Babic. I am also an assistant professor. I've been here for the last 2 years now, well, frankly, I don't have much to add to that besides moving on to let you know that Federica Marullo, another one of assistant professors, is not present with us here today. And the next two people you will hear from are Iris Kleinbussink, who is our teacher, and Noah Schievink, who is our student ambassador. So, Iris?
Thank you, Maya. My name is Iris Kleinbussink. I've been teaching here at the Groningen University for a year now. Before this, I have also done the master that we're about to tell you a little bit about. So yeah, and I give the floor to Noah.
Yes, thank you, Iris. I hope everyone can hear me. I am a student ambassador for this master's. I have been a student for the past 2 years. Me and Iris also were together in a couple of, or all my courses actually. I will be telling you at the end about my experience as a student ambassador and what you can expect a little.
Okay, on that note, I think we can move to our next slide, which is what do we actually do? And I think Tino will be telling us a tiny bit about this.
Yes, so as you can read here, we look into the classical history and theory of architecture and urbanism. So what does that mean? We're looking at a lot of buildings and urban situations, urban planning, so buildings from the past, historical architecture. And in this sense, history and theory mean that we're not only looking at buildings themselves and how they look like and from what material they are built, but we're also looking into the broader context that that caused the existence of these buildings. So we look at the context of the societal, economic, cultural, and philosophical, religious situation in the past, and also at the products of these past societies in terms of built legacy, and this means buildings and urban situations, town planning. So here, the chair, the chair in Groningen of architectural history has a long tradition, and an important tradition. It played also a decisive role in making this an own subject and an own course of study. So just not only we don't see architectural history as a part of art history, but as their own individual and independent subject that's very worth to study. We are in our courses geared towards active participation of the students. That means that, of course, you will from time to time hear a lecture just to get informed about some things, but we also want to work with you. So we have interactive courses, we engage in discussions, we also take you to excursions, so we take you outside into the buildings, we look at these buildings. So it's just much more than only listening or reading. It's really a master program where you can engage and where you can work with us in the objects and at the objects. And also we see this in a discourse on global urban tendencies. That means we are focusing on Dutch and European architecture and urbanism, but we see this in a global context and thereby also relate to the great societal topics of the moment that we have, climate change, migration, decolonization. This all has to do with architecture and urbanism, also with historic architecture and urbanism. And we are looking in these phenomena as well. All right, that's it from my side.
Well, I will invite Cor to tell us what it is that we do in regard to architecture and urbanism.
Yes, thank you, Maya. Well, we talk about architecture and we talk about urbanism. So actually we talk about two scales. The scale of architecture, that is buildings, and the scale of urbanism, that is cities, but also landscapes and everything in between. And what you see here is a very famous building, and it is a church. It is Notre Dame du Haut, built by Le Corbusier. It is obviously a church, but it is also a manifesto of what a church should be. A church is a very old functional type. It has a very long history, and you know about that. These buildings are very, very old, can be very, very old, and they have a long evolution. And what Le Corbusier did is he changed this type, this very long tradition of this type. He changed it, he modified it, he made something else, something that had never been there before, and which makes this building fit for the people it has been built for. So fit for present times. So that is what he did, and that is one of the things that we try to figure out, that we study buildings. We talk about types and how they are modified. This slide shows you the city of London. That is to say, the city of London, it's a proposal for the reconstruction of this city. As you may know, it was heavily bombed during the Second World War. It was done with rockets. It's called the Blitz. And then plans were made to rebuild the city, but not just reconstruct it, but again, make it fit for a new future. And one of the distinct features of this future was that it should be fit for the car. Most plans made in the 1950s, 1960s transform cities into places that are fit for the car. That is one of the most striking features and consequential features of urban planning and reconstruction planning in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. So this is a wider scale of the urban level. And then I give the floor back to Maya.
So I will very briefly tell you that our focus in this master program is dual. We engage with cultural heritage, but also we engage in health. These two things may not seem so obviously connected, but however, they very much are. Another part that is rather important for us to note, and that is the part in regard to cultural heritage aspect, is that we move our focal points away, a tiny bit away from what is commonly studied in Central and Western Europe, or perhaps in the North American continent, and that is the architecture of the so-called and also the architecture of Western Europe. On the screen, you can see an example from Bosnia and Herzegovina, my home country, and this is a memorial complex for one of the World War II battles. And on the screen, this is from 1971. You can really see something perhaps not commonly recognized as this cultural heritage that we speak of when we speak about World War II, but also these elements that you can see on the screen that are perhaps not something that is so commonly acknowledged when we speak about the spaces outside of this Western canon, to put it that way. Again, Bosnia and Herzegovina in this case is just an example. We are more than happy, actually, we welcome you to suggest any type of inquiry into other spaces that you might find interesting or that you might want to explore, be it close to you personally or just something that you are scholarly interested in. I will give the floor to Cor to tell a little bit about the health focus of our program.
Yes, thank you, Maya. Health focus is one of the things that we have as one of the spearheads of our courses. It sounds as if it is added on, as it is a plug-on, but actually it is at the core of all architecture and urbanism, always, throughout history. Throughout history, architecture and urbanism have always been about making people's lives more convenient, more happier, and also healthier. And these are very much interconnected things. Well, as you have seen a few slides back, during the reconstruction years, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, we rebuilt our cities to make them fit for the car. And now we see the car as a major threat to the well-being of citizens. They make places, streets, unfit for anything else but traffic. And present thinking, contemporary thinking about urbanism wants to give back the public spaces of the city, the streets, the squares, to the citizens. And that explains why this type of picture that you see here, which is from a book published in 1890, when the car was not yet there, has become an immensely important source of inspiration for the reconstruction of our 1950s, 1960s, 1970s cities in order to not completely get rid of the car, but to deal with the car in a completely different way. And that gives these public spaces back to the people, and that helps a lot to make these cities a lot healthier. Well, I think we go on to the next slide, and there we have one of the characteristics of our program. Our program gives our students a lot of opportunity to make their own personal trajectories. We have a combination of required courses, mandatory courses, and elective courses. The required courses, even the mandatory courses, give our students a possibility to follow their own path through what they think is interesting in architecture and urbanism. And the electives, of course, give them a chance to choose those electives closest to their hearts. We have, as required courses, several courses. We have Origins of the Healthy Cities, which is actually a program that canvasses and explains the history of urbanism in Western Europe, and not only in Western Europe, on a global scale as well. We have the Encyclopedia of Typologies. That is a course Maya teaches. Maya?
Our other classes, I do teach a class of Encyclopedia of Topologies. It's a class that also engages with theory of methodology that we're trying to incorporate. So as scholars or in your future careers, you will actually have this further proper, how to put it, background into how we engage in these things and how we study them and how we really write about them. Another class that I teach is actually not so much a class as it is an excursion. You can see it here listed under the Encyclopedia of Topologies. It's called Detecting the City. It is a class basically where we take you for 7 or 8 days in different spaces in different cities. And while the name might be a little bit on the nose, it's actually quite descriptive. We ask you to explore the city. We ask you to dig into the city, to find its characteristics, and ultimately to tell us what it is that you found. The excursion is, of course, led by to professors, so you have some guidance. But just for reference, for example, last year we went to Barcelona. This year we have a tripartite visit. We go to Belgrade, Zagreb, and Sarajevo. And next year we even have some grand plans of taking students to Havana. A year later is Budapest, but we'll see really how that goes. Finally, before we move to the electives, Iris will tell us a little bit about the internship or the individual project.
Yeah, thank you, Maya. So after you finish all your courses, hopefully you will get the opportunity to do an internship. In doing so, you will reach out to a company that has to do with architecture, and you sort of have quite a wide range of options. So you can work for, let's say, a cultural heritage firm, an architectural office, but also, for example, a municipality or an architectural news outlet. So really have a lot of options at your disposal. You will hopefully work with them for a few months. And the nice thing about it is that the internship can sort of foster some real results in terms of job opportunities. I have a friend who did her internship at the Architect magazine in the Netherlands, and she has a full-time job there now. So in that sense, it can bring you some opportunities. It can also be done abroad, which might be nice for some of you. And then should you not be able to do an internship, perhaps you can do an individual project whereby you delve deeper into a particular topic by following a variety of courses. Then, of course, a mandatory part of the master is the master thesis, which we will talk about a bit later. But for now, Tina will tell you a little bit about some electives.
Yeah, so apart from the course just mentioned there, you can choose for a couple of electives, and we try to give you as much freedom as possible. So also the electives we are offering, they change from year to year depending on the electives that are on offer from also other departments or even other faculties. So we also collaborate with the Faculty of Spatial Planning, for example, where you can also take elective courses. Here you see the three core electives offered by our own department, by our own section: Architecture and Urbanism, History and Theory, and Architecture, Urbanism and Health. And I just want to shed a focus on this Capital Selector of History and Theory for a moment. So this is a track where you can follow two different courses. One is the Expressionist architecture. So this is a specific Dutch and also German architecture of the around 1920s. So this is a very unique contribution to architectural history. Actually, it's a parallel movement to new objectivity, to classical modernism. And here we really looking into the buildings that we see in Groningen, that we see in the Netherlands, and we try to find out why this very specific type of architecture came up, and was only relevant for a short moment of time. So this movement was discontinued, but still, when you see when you take a look into contemporary architecture now, you see that a lot of references are being made in Dutch architecture to Expressionist architecture, to the Amsterdam School or Groningen School, as you want to call it. So that's really a very interesting legacy that we are investigating. There are lectures and also excursions where we take a look at these buildings and try to find more about them. And the other course that runs under history and theory is cultural heritage. And here we are really looking into this modern concept of cultural heritage. So this is a concept that roughly exists since 200 years, so it's not really much older. And we're really looking into the history, so in the history of how we, or how the perspective on things was changed. In the beginning, these were monuments. And in the beginning, these were antiquities, later considered as monuments. Today, we speak of cultural heritage, architectural heritage. These are still the same objects, but they play a very different role in society. And we're trying to trace this, these changing roles, and also ask the question: what does built heritage actually contribute to society nowadays and to the big societal discourses? And here we are looking into the history, but also into the history of the big organizations, for example, like UNESCO, e-commerce, and so forth, and also into the organizations and government structures that we have here in the Netherlands, so to prepare you for a possible job in this field of culture of built heritage. All right, that's it from my side.
Thank you, Tina.
Yeah.
So I will say a thing or two about the thesis, which you will write at the end of your master's track. This is a document consisting of some 20,000 to 22,000 words in which you delve into a topic that you hopefully find very interesting. There is a sort of broad range of options at your disposal. We see here a few titles on screen, but basically, thankfully, the expertise in our department is so broad that you can basically choose anything that you like, be it an individual building or a certain period in history or a phenomenon. So you can really choose what it is that you like. In that sense, it can also be quite fun. I know I found it quite fun because you can really sort of make it your own. And it kind of serves as this final product of your master track, a period of hard work, and so you have really something to show for it, which I personally quite like. Tina will tell you a little bit about some job prospects.
Yes. So here it's interesting also to know that our students come from very diverse backgrounds. So we have students that come from one of our own bachelor tracks, for example, history of art, architecture, and landscape, or from the spatial planning faculty. But we also have students coming from that study architecture at another university or philosophy. So there's a broad range, and also we have a lot of international students. So this is a program that really is not focusing on just one outcome in the end, so that you can just have one job, but it offers a broad selection actually in the end. And here you see some of them listed. Of course, it's possible to work in a heritage and monument conservation agency. This includes, of course, something like the National Service for Monuments or bigger international organizations like UNESCO. It is possible to work in journalism and public relations. So this is an increasingly important part also for architectural history and cultural heritage, public relations, to communicate the objects of our interest actually to a wider public and to emphasize on their importance, on their significance, for current societal issues. Many students work afterwards at architectural offices or local architectural centers. So this is also an opportunity, especially for people who studied architecture in their bachelor. So they use our master to deepen their knowledge actually in architectural history and architectural theory, so that sets them, or that equips them with a knowledge that goes beyond engineering and building as such. And this also, of course, there's a chance to stay and work in academia, to do a PhD and get engaged with work in university. And above this, you have the chance to work as a freelance researcher or consultant. So many people are following this route. That gives you a lot of freedom, and you can really concentrate on the buildings or planning aspects that you're interested in. And this is also connected to a variety of jobs in policy making or jobs in healthcare institutions. So you'll see that there are really a lot of opportunities in the end. You can of course also work as a consultant for municipal agencies and scientific institutions. So it's really a master track that equips you with a lot of specific knowledge and a lot of skills that allow you really to pursue the path that you are looking for your future career. Yes, I'm handing over.
On that note, I'd like to invite Noah to tell us a little bit about her experience as a student, and then we will move on to Q&A and hopefully answer the questions you might have for us. Noah?
Yes, thank you, Maya. As I told before, I am the student ambassador for this master's program. And the way I got to this master is because I followed a bachelor in history, in which I took a minor in art history. And this minor introduced me to the architecture and landscape courses. I had always been interested in these subjects from my historical background. And when I went into the information session that we're in right now, but then in my year, I was quickly convinced that I wanted to do this master's because I thought it would bring me a lot of new experiences. What I found out is that this master gives you the chance to explore and deepen your interest and skills you already had concerning architecture and town planning, and discover new ones as well. So I experienced this master as a diverse master, which you will find that sometimes you have a strong preference for maybe an elective or a certain subject or topic, and other times not. If not, and you cannot quite figure it out, I always have found that the professors are really helpful in thinking with you what's the right choice for you in a subject or topic. As Tino already mentioned in the beginning, he said that there's a balance between the types of courses. And me as a student, I totally agree with this. So sometimes you participate in lectures at the university about which you then write an essay. And sometimes you're in a city somewhere in the world giving a presentation to your fellow students about a building or topic you totally immerse yourself in. So that's quite a correct description of what this master is. What I liked in addition to that is that there is also a good ratio in terms of individual assignments and group assignments. I personally like to work on an assignment by myself, but having these group assignments as well teaches you not only study skills, but also teamwork skills. So it prepares you for the working with colleagues in the future after your studies. I had a certain interest and preferences in some subjects, so I followed the expressionism part and did a course about hospitals. But through this study, I also gained a lot of new experience on topics that I have never thought about before. So through the different courses in this master's, sometimes elective and sometimes required, I learned new ways of thinking and handling knowledge, which is really nice. As Iris told, there is also the option for the internship. I would highly recommend this to anyone. For me, learning to work in a team other than with your fellow students gives you a lot of experience and lets you experience what life after graduating could be. This was for me a good way to see how I would be liking to work in a company. And I think I got a clear picture of those months that I had the opportunity to do it. So overall, for me, this master's content and its format and the experiences that come with it have allowed me to prepare for a future in architecture and urban planning. So only writing my thesis now, and then I'm gone.
Thank you, Noah. On that note, we end this part of our presentation, and I'd like to invite you all to ask any questions you might have, and we will be happy to try to answer the questions. So.
Awfully quiet.
Awfully quiet.
But this will change.
Feel free to write them in the chat in case you're shy.
So, Janke asks, suppose you want to in academia, is it better to follow this master or the architecture track in the research master?
That is an interesting question. And from my perspective, if I may answer it, I would suggest this master because you spend all your time on architecture and not on a part of a wider course. So far, our people who want to stay in academia have managed to do so. So it is a successful trajectory in the preparation of an academic course. And our staff members also help you shaping that course and that trajectory. So we help you write research proposals, find grants that you sometimes need, scholarships and things like that. And that may help you to kickstart a career after your master in academia. Do my colleagues have to add something to that?
Not maybe just a question, but which research master are you referring to? Because I'm not aware of an architecture track in the research master.
Yeah, I can answer. I was just in the session about the arts, media, and literary studies research master, and there it was said that arts and or the history of arts and architecture and landscape was also covered there. So
I'm afraid, and I don't want to say anything out of context, but this is only a very minor part of this research master. which is rather theoretical in nature and not so much geared to the academic qualities of architecture and urbanism that we cover in our master.
I think it's also fair to acknowledge, to answer Janke's question, is that this is a one-year master. So just take into account of how much can a program that only deals with architecture in a tiny segment, how much it can prepare you in this span of only 2 semesters. And frankly, if you want to study architecture, you come to the architecture program. And perhaps Iris can say a tiny bit, because Iris will be continuing her studies for a PhD following the master's program here.
Yeah, honestly, in my opinion, this master track is quite brilliant at helping you on your way in the academic world. I happen to fall into it, thankfully, right out of my master track, which I think is rare, but it's very nice that I had that opportunity. And I very much feel the knowledge that I gained during my master track has helped me a lot along the way in my career and future career as well.
Okay, well, Davina asks, how does this master's fit with the spatial planning bachelor's from the, I'm assuming this is Faculty of Spatial Sciences, FSS?
Well, I can answer that. We have a close cooperation with the spatial sciences, and in the past, we had many students who came to us with a bachelor in spatial sciences. And they had no problems whatsoever in following our courses, and they rather enjoyed it. We have a slightly different perspective from the perspective of the spatial sciences. We have more of a focus on the built environment, the design component, and then really design not in institutional settings, not the institutional design, but really the architectural urban spatial design. And this combination of a bachelor in the spatial sciences and a master in architecture and urbanism apparently turns out quite well. People who followed this, who did this trajectory, they ended up very well in their career after the master. So we warmly welcome people from the spatial sciences to our courses. They actually get decent, very decent jobs after this combination.
And frankly, we've
Does
had a
that answer
couple
the
of
question? Go on, Maya.
No, I just want to say we've had a couple of spatial science students in the past years, and they've done extremely well, I would say. In the program, it seems to be a very good fit with the spatial planning bachelor's and how it interacts with what we do with the architecture and urbanism and town planning. So anybody else would like to ask a question? Maybe you have questions about classes or excursions or supervision. We're all available to supervise you for your thesis. You can choose to an extent, you can choose your supervisors and choose what you will work on, but perhaps a question in that regard, or frankly, any question you might have, because this is the best opportunity to get answers you might be needing.
I think we answered all the questions so super perfectly that everybody is so incredibly happy that there are no questions at this point. But if there are, it is now, or well, not never. You can always reach out to us and we will always answer your questions, of course. But in this session, I think we are nearing the end, and it is for this session now.
If I may just have one suggestion, if Noah perhaps wouldn't mind putting her email address in the chat box. So perhaps if students have questions that they would feel more comfortable to ask her than us, maybe they can reach out to Noah privately and ask questions. So if Noah wouldn't mind sharing it in the screen, that would be lovely. Okay, so it will be here. And I suggest you take a screenshot of it or however you would prefer. She can give you more of an individual experience of the program. So here is the email. Please take note of it. And unless there are any other questions.
If I may interject briefly, we also have a master's video that I will post in the chat box now. If you want to see all of our faces again and perhaps have some more questions answered, you can take a look at that. We delve a bit deeper into certain courses and also sort of the nature of our program and how it is all nice and social. So big thanks.
Yeah, and you get the experience to see really how life in Groningen looks like if you're not from here, and if you're not perhaps Dutch. I'm not Dutch. It was quite an experience. So I suggest you check out the video, and it gives you quite a bit of information.
Yeah, I
If you
wanted
have,
to add,
yeah.
also with any question also means questions about how it is studying in the city or how it is living in Groningen. So if it's not only the master's program related, it's also fine.
Good.
There is a question written in bold. You mentioned that the master also includes the study of landscapes. I'm not sure. Okay, what is the difference between the approach to landscape in the master and in the master landscape history? Might be a bit of a confusion, but Cor can elaborate on that.
Well, landscape history includes landscapes from a, let's say, geological perspective, the non-plant landscapes, the soil, the water systems, things like that. And our master focuses on landscapes that are man-made. Also agricultural landscapes. That is where we have an overlap with the people from the landscape department. But we also have a very strong emphasis on park systems, landscapes, gardens that are architectural in nature, that are spatial compositions, and as such are carriers, containers of historical meaning, of ideological contexts, and settings, and that would be the major difference with the master of landscape. Another difference is that our landscape master, I should say that, our architectural master, of course, architecture and urbanism is an English course, and the course that is offered by our colleagues from landscape is still in Dutch. That's a practical thing, but the most important thing is contents, and then the difference is that our focus is very much on designed landscapes. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that answers it. Thank you. And I wanted to say about my previous question, you were right, architecture was not really a track in the research master, but it was listed as a specialization. But your answers were really helpful. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Well, that's good to know. Any shy questions? Okay. Marion asks, or Marion, I apologize, how much attention is given to the interior of a building?
I think that's a perfect question for Tino, but I can also already state that we often do a lot about interiors of buildings. Not only the floor plans, but also the detailing, the materials, the furniture, as far as it's part of a building, but not only as far as it is part of a building, as far as it is part of the composition. That is just simply part of what architecture is all about. Sometimes in, let's say, well, a lot of expressionist buildings, this is the case, but also medieval cathedrals, it is impossible to make a distinction between the building, the decoration, the artwork, and everything that is on it and in it. Maybe
I think
Tino
it's
wants
also
to add
safe to,
something.
if I can just add very briefly before Tino takes over, I think it's safe to say that we approach this program as a comprehensive study. So I think this really follows into the question about the landscape. We will never address just the building and its exteriors. We will the study of anything you might actually engage with here will deal with the space in its entirety as a whole. So we will talk about the landscape, the urban plans, the structures, the composition, but also for sure the interior of any structure. We do not see it, I would argue all of us, we do not see it as something removed from it, quite the opposite, something that is a significant part. But I think Tina might be a much better person to answer this.
Yeah, sure. Of course, this is not a program on interior architecture, but you cannot see this lose from the building itself. So it depends on also which period are we looking into, or which specific style we are looking into. The interior plays a very important role. And I just mentioned this expressionist architecture, and here we see that all the or many of the leading architects back then, they also would design furniture. They designed complete interiors for their buildings because they were busy with designing the new home for the new worker in terms of urbanization. So this is a comprehensive field, and you cannot separate architecture from the outside, or between the outside or the inside. And you also have to incorporate even the furniture and these tiny aspects on how to organize life. Another example might be Le Corbusier, who was busy with rationalizing architecture in a specific way, and also set up his houses like a machine for living, and even calculated very precisely the height of the rooms according to his own proportions. And this also relates to furniture, to pathways, walkways in the building. So this is something we're also looking into very much. Yes.
Well, thank you, Marian, for asking the question. I really would like to, we have some time left, and please, this is the perfect time for you to ask any questions that we might have an answer for you. On that note, anyone? Well, I think it's safe to say then, in that case, we've answered as much as possible, and I do hope we've informed you sufficiently of our program. Again, the video is up there under Iris's name, and Noah's email is further above. As she mentioned, any questions in regard to the department, living in Groningen, or what she's doing right now, please do not hesitate to contact us, ask any questions, and I think I speak for all of us. We look forward to seeing some of you next year joining us. So thank you.
Thank you all very much for joining.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.